Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming along to this webinar discussing Research Skills Master Program with the Impact Measuring Tool, Improving the Effectiveness of Researchers. We should take about 45 minutes of your time today, including the designated question and answer session at the end. If you look to the right of your screen, there is a question option as part of the panel near the bottom. If you would like to ask questions as they occur, please feel free to send them over and we will answer them at the end of our webinar. We are recording this webinar, so if you wish to view it again or share it with your colleagues, it will be available on Epigeum's YouTube page next week. At the moment, you are all on mute to avoid background noises, but again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the panel on your right. So just a couple of introductions. That's me, Anne-Marie Turner, on the left-hand side of the slide. I'm the marketing manager for all of Epigeum's research courses, including Research Skills Master Program, which throughout this webinar we will commonly refer to as RSMP. I will let Dr. Douglas Halliday and Olivia Spiro introduce themselves.
Yes, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the webinar. I'm Douglas Halliday. As you can see, I'm from Durham University and I've had a long-standing involvement with Epigeum in terms of helping them to develop the Research Skills Master Program and also advised them on the development of the new Impact tool, which I'll be saying a little bit more about later on. So welcome everyone.
Thank you for that. And Olivia?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for joining us for this webinar. I'm Olivia Spiro, and I'm the product manager for our Impact Measuring Toolkit, which we will be seeing a demonstration of later during the webinar. Over to you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you so much, both of you, for attending and speaking on behalf of Epigeum today. To get you all started with the agenda, we will firstly be discussing the background of Epigeum from myself, and then Dr. Halliday will tell you a little bit more on the background and vision for Research Skills Master Program, and then Olivia will give an overview and demonstration of the Impact Measuring Tool. Finally, we will wrap up with a Q&A session. And as I already mentioned, please feel free to give any of your questions throughout, and I will keep track of them so that our advisors will be able to answer your questions at the end. Now, about Epigeum. Epigeum was founded in 2005 as a spin-off of the Imperial College of London. Our two founders created the company in response to what they felt was a lack of timely support for researchers. At the time, one of our founders was getting his PhD while also working full-time when he came across issues that he wanted and needed to be advised on. The courses he needed to take either had to be face-to-face courses that would start over 3 months later, or he would find online material that was dated or inadequate that didn't quite fit what he needed. He saw this as an opportunity to work with universities to create supported materials for researchers, particularly PhD students and postdocs like himself, that gave immediate support for all those issues. That's where Epigeum started. In the more than 10 years since, we have expanded with our company from our first studying program for students to also research, teaching, and leadership management courses intended for staff and professionals. Epigeum was acquired by Oxford University Press in May 2015. Since OUP is a division of Oxford University, Epigeum is still a not-for-profit organization, and in a higher education context, still very much focused on creating high-quality material. To date, in the decades since we have been formed, we've created over 92 online courses across 19 different programs, and now we currently have 4 courses in development. We are a globally focused organization, and we have worked with over 280 universities across 30 countries worldwide to date. I would like to briefly touch on implementation of our implementation of courses at Epigeum. Firstly, it can be used as a standalone academic course. You can supply the students with an online multimedia-rich course that immediately at that time and place they need it. This would be in a self-study mode. The advantage here is that you can make the course quite personal and release training on demand. So this is the most flexible option of the three. Secondly, we have an option for tutor-supported online courses. There is plenty of supplementary materials available as part of each course, which can be used by tutors to enhance our course. Tutors can be used to provide feedback that cannot be provided by computers. They can work on community-based features, give motivational messages, etc. So there's a whole tutoring side to this course that can be used if you have. The advantage here is that the course is allowed to be more effective, but you would lose flexibility as you would tend to have fixed start and end times. Finally, and this is the most common use of our courses, is that it can be used as part of a blended learning program. Typically, how this works is that the students are given access to the online course ahead of a workshop, and then the workshop would focus on consolidation and application of the materials. This is considered to be maybe the most effective pedagogically, but also the least flexible. Thus, you have a spectrum here from the most flexible to the most pedagogically effective. So you can also implement the course in all three modes at once. Together, these three methods of implementation provide you with quite an armory to get your students the support and knowledge they require. Now that you have a bit of background knowledge on Epigeum and how we put our programs together, I would like to pass on the screen to Dr. Douglas Halliday.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for that introduction. And perhaps if you could move on to the next slide, please. And as you can see here, the Research Master's Skills Program is quite an extensive suite of programs. It contains 18 different courses with 98 different modules embedded in the courses. It contains approximately 40 hours of online content for researchers to work through, with about 200 hours of additional offline material which supplements the learning which is available to people should they choose to access it. You can see from the list here that it covers a very broad range of key skills that would be expected for researchers to develop. And it's used in something like 60 plus different universities right across many different countries, as Anne-Marie has already said. Epigeum uses a very successful development group model to put these courses together. And at the outset, universities are invited to become part of the original development group, and the role of the development group is really to put the specification together. That's agreed by each of the group members. The courses are drafted and reviewed by key experts in the field, and again the development group has a role in helping to identify experts, and each of these courses is overseen by a lead advisor who's a recognized authority in the field. The courses are then reviewed by development group members, and all of this ensures that courses are relevant to the needs of the group. It ensures that the courses have wide relevance and applicability, and it also ensures that courses add to the support that is already in place at the different institutions. And you can see here from the information on the screen, this was the original development group that was helping to put together. So we're now in a situation where we have a number of years of experience of operating the courses. Epigeum and those of us involved with it, I think, understand what works reasonably well, what doesn't work well at institutional level. And I think, as Anne-Marie has already said, blended and embedded approaches to facilitate engagement with the online environment is the most common mode, and that's partly because it's understood to be the most effective. So really the RSMP program is about supporting individual researchers in their individual development, and how best to navigate through the courses is an important question. So that then leads on to the issue of impact. And in terms of impact, impact really takes the existing courses and it embeds a suite of measurement tools seamlessly within the courses, and this provides data and metrics to assess the effectiveness of the online training. And really this is carefully designed in terms of prompts, questions, and is embedded at key points in the online courses. So just reflecting just very briefly on the issue of training. So perhaps if you could go back to the previous slide, please, Anne-Marie. So thinking about the development of impact, really the questions arise, what do we seek to achieve in terms of the training that we're offering? And if one thinks about research degrees, either masters or PhDs, these are recognized, I think, as very distinct academic qualifications. And for those of us that are still part of the European Union, we have the idea of the third cycle in the Bologna process, where you have an individual program of personal research, where you need to facilitate the development of individuals with a broad range of skills. So the comment here on the screen, I think, seems self-evident, that the best research is done by the best researchers. So really the key question is, how do you train and develop the most effective researchers? And that is in terms of both knowledge, which of course the PhD and master's programs are very good at, but it's also in terms of developing behaviors, skills, and really empowering individuals to be effective researchers. And it's partly about learning skills from others, but it's also about providing a strong, effective training environment. So I think for me, training has a really important role within the context of research degree programs. It helps develop a positive research culture, and it's now clear that online training plays a very important role, adding to the training environment. And we are increasingly finding in universities new approaches to research in terms of interdisciplinary working, where you have teams working perhaps across different disciplines with perhaps different approaches to research, different ways of communicating, and so on. And so this really needs careful support, both in terms of face-to-face, but also an appropriately structured online learning environment. So this is partly the driver and motivation for impact. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Anne-Marie. Thank you. So in terms of thinking about impact, we wanted to establish some key principles at the outset, really, in terms of adding to the RSMP program to create the RSMP Impact program. So as you can see here, we wanted it to be integrated, very much an integral part of the program that clearly and obviously fits in. And really its key purpose is just to assess engagement with the training. And at the time that we had the meeting amongst the development group, there was a long discussion about the scope of the questions. And we recognized that there are other sources of information available for postgraduate research students. Particularly in the United Kingdom, we have the PRES, P-R-E-S survey managed by the Higher Education Academy, run every 2 years. And that provides a lot of background information that is helpful. So really with that in mind, we identified there was a need to assess the engagement with RSMP, looking at factors that impact an individual's engagement with the online training environment. And we also wanted there to be benefits to the user in terms of providing evidence for a portfolio, reflective questions, that users would be prompted and their responses would be stored so that they would have some resources to go back to over a period of time. And it's also, I think, important to encourage skills of reflection at a relatively early stage in the professional development of researchers, so that they develop really the habit of ongoing professional development. We felt there was a need to think about how to develop a sense of community through the online engagement, and we wanted to collect useful data and consider how the data is shared, stored, analysed and presented, which of course has clear ethical issues. So this is really a sort of, a pointer to what we believe impact will provide. and it will provide fine-level granular data on what is quite, or what can be, a very dispersed heterogeneous community. If you think of research students dispersed across each of our institutions, they can be in small teams or individual research groups across very different academic disciplines, undertaking very different research programs. We wanted also to gain a clear view of individual researchers and their motivation for engaging with training, and this can also, of course, help with promoting research degrees. And there is a reference there to PRES 2015 in the UK, the Postgraduate Research Experience Survey, and that tells us that for something like 38% of PhD students, doctoral students, the motivation is interest in the subject. So the impact tool will help us to identify elements and aspects of research culture and engagement with research climate. And my experience over the years as someone who has supervised many research students, as someone who was Dean of a graduate school for a number of years, and someone who has run a doctoral training centre, the research culture, which one can think of as the sort of wider environment in which PhDs and masters and other researchers operate, it's often very hard to quantify this. So we wanted the impact tool to be able to give us information about how best to support researchers in terms of measurement and quantification. It contains reflective aspects designed to facilitate engagement and obviously to empower individual researchers to achieve their full potential. I think it can also help identify what might be considered as good and best practice. My own experience over a number of years leads me to believe that in many of our institutions there are some very innovative uses going on in terms of how training is used, how online training is used, and often it can be very difficult to sort of identify that. So impact, I think, can help us there. It can also help identify any perceived or real barriers in terms of training, and it can also help with benchmarking the use of training right across the institution. And for those that are interested, it could potentially provide information about longitudinal studies over a period of time. And so I think finally, just to say, information would be provided to address any significant variations that one might identify in your own institution, and really overall help build and improve research culture, which I think for me is a really important element of training for researchers. So the next slide, please, Anne-Marie, thank you. And in the longer term, thinking beyond just the initial implementation, I think what we have is a tool that measures engagement of individuals with online training. I think it can help provide a new benchmark for measuring online environment. I think it helps give us a better, or will help give us a better sense of engagement. It will inform the more effective approaches to blended learning. It will help develop new strategies. It will help us identify what individual researchers like and don't like about the online environment and the wider context in which that sits. And I think also importantly it will help address cultural change. I mean, I think there is a growing recognition of the importance of structured support for doctoral programs. And those of us in the United Kingdom will have seen the growth of doctoral training centres, where there is a recognition that structured support for PhD is a really important element. So in a sense what the impact tool will provide is much better information about the impact really of structured support for researchers at master's, doctoral and early career level. I think it potentially could open new avenues for collaboration, both within and among different institutions and organizations. It might open possibilities for different departments within our individual organizations to collaborate, and it might also provide a mechanism for collaboration across different organizations that use the Epigeum program. So I think it's about improving online learning. I think it's about developing more tailored approaches for different groups. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, for me, the most important thing, it's about providing a better individual tailored experience for each of the many hundreds or thousands or maybe even just 10 or 20 individual masters, PhD researchers or early career researchers that we have in our institution. So that's really all I want to say at the moment. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you so much for that, Douglas. That was very informative. I am now going to pass on the screen to Olivia. She is going to now give us a demonstration of the impact tool and how we can use it through Research Skills Master Program. So give it one moment to transfer to her.
Thank you very much, Douglas and Anne-Marie. Great, thank you very much. So again, thank you, Douglas, for that interesting overview on the RSMP program and how we work together with a number of institutions to develop the impact measuring toolkit. Now, you'll be able to see on my screen here the impact programs landing page, which is hosted on Epigeum's portal. So here you'll see Epigeum impact programs, and this landing page shows you the list of all 18 of the Research Skills Master Program courses, which are all available now with our impact measuring tools. Now, the main objectives that we would like to be measuring through the RSMP program are motivations, perceived learning gain, and training support. Together, these provide a complete picture of the wider training environment and will help institutions to improve the quality and effectiveness of their training on offer. As Anne-Marie and Douglas have both mentioned, in our experience, the overall efficacy of Epigeum's online training is influenced by all of these factors, including the levels of support and encouragement offered by supervisory teams and other members of research groups. And therefore, we've designed the RSMP Impact Program to capture all of these different views of researchers on these various aspects of their training experience. The actual impact questions that are embedded throughout the courses were developed and written by VTI, who are the global leader in supporting the professional development of researchers, with continual guidance and input from Dr. Halliday. Now, I'd like to give you a demonstration of the participants' experience and also a university administrator's experience when using the RSMP Impact Program. As I've mentioned, the impact programs are only available via Epigeum's hosted platform, and that is so that we can securely capture, store, and then deliver back to you the impact data. The impact surveys themselves are embedded into each of the courses shown on the screen, and participants are asked to provide their informed consent when they first register on the platform to make sure that they understand and agree to what data is being captured and how it's going to be used. The surveys themselves are optional and don't count towards course completion or a certificate of completion. Now, for the purposes of the demonstration, we're going to be looking at the first course, the Introduction to Research Skills course. Here you'll see the left-hand navigation, which shows participants all the different modules and screens throughout the course. As an introductory course, this is fairly short. And I'm going to show you now the first screen from the first module, why is skills training so important for researchers. So we've really wanted impact to be an integrated part of the learning experience for participants. So as you scroll down the screen, you'll notice that peppered and embedded throughout the content, we have placed some of these impact surveys that are relevant and an important aspect of the learning for participants to take as part of this screen activities. I'll just mention that we are viewing impact as an iterative development process, and we do have plans to update and improve the design and style of the surveys and the user experience for participants. I'll show you now how a participant can answer some of these questions. So as a participant, I simply click my answer, and when I press submit, the participant is automatically shown on screen the results from all participants who have answered these questions. And that's a global response, not just from within their own institution. Here again we have another example of a question. There are also some open text entry questions which provide more interesting qualitative feedback. Again, as a participant, once I press submit, I'm shown the benchmark data, which really provides a sense of learning community and enables participants to see how their peers and colleagues have thought about and responded to those questions. That gives you an idea then of the participants' experience, and as I've mentioned before, those similar sorts of impact questions have been embedded throughout each of the 18 courses. And once, if you decide to have a trial access to the course, you'll be able to explore for yourselves what those questions are and see that we've really aimed for them to be relevant and useful to participants. I'll now move on to show you the university administrator's experience of using the impact tool. Each university administrator is provided with an admin account. Here you'll see that I'm logged into a demo administrator account. Once you have your own account, again on Epigeum's hosted platform, this will be customized for your institution. Now, most of the links on the left-hand side here are links to general analytics that allow you to track and monitor course usage and uptake for named individual participants. So that enables you to keep track of who's started the course, who's attempted the end-of-course quiz, and who has successfully passed the course. The only section dealing with the impact questions is this section here, labeled Impact Reports. And we've put in place several criteria to ensure that all of that impact data is de-identified from individual participants' course usage data and from their identifying details. So as we're aware that we're asking some very sensitive questions with the impact toolkit, we've really made sure that participants' anonymity can be ensured. You have two routes then to access your impact data. The first allows you to analyze the data through certain measurement areas, which are currently still being finalized. But as you'll see for the first drop-down menu, you can select the program that you're interested in, and so on and so forth. We have an alternative route here, which is to search directly for the program you're interested in, which in this case is RSMP. You can then select a specific course. In this demo, we have some dummy data for the Introduction to Research Skills course, so I'll select that. And then the system generates an automatic on-screen display of all of the data that has been gathered from that impact course. Now you'll see at the moment the data is returned in this format, and as I mentioned earlier, we are working on a continual roadmap to update this interface. But the main features will remain the same. You can see that for now I can see the institutional view. So that shows me that 15 participants from this administrator demo university have answered this particular question. I have an option to view different formats of charts or table view of the data, and I have options to download the data for my own purposes, for meetings or presentations, or for further analysis. When you're in this institutional view, you also have the option then to filter the data. Again, we've put in place certain criteria to ensure that participant anonymity is maintained, such as only being able to apply one filter at a time. Now, this information, this demographic information, is collected from participants when they first register on the system. And that then enables us to run these various filters. And the first two, unit and department, can be customized for your individual institution with any units or faculties or schools that are appropriate to your institution. And that is a very powerful feature which then will allow you to get really fine-grained, detailed information onto how these different demographic categories are interacting with and answering the impact questions. Finally, you have the option here to switch to a benchmark view, which shows you how all participants globally have responded to these impact questions. So that's not only from your institution, but the comparison across all institutions who are taking part with Epigeum in this RSMP impact program. At the moment, because this is a demo account, we don't have a very large number of participants, but once we have institutions who are actively taking part and that benchmark data set starts to grow, that will really provide some interesting comparisons there for you to see how other institutions, how researchers from other institutions are interacting with these impact questions. I think that's hopefully given you a broad idea of the participants and the administrators' experience of RSMP Impact. So I'd like to hand over to Anne-Marie, and we'll see if there are any questions either for myself or for Douglas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Olivia. It was really great. So now you should all see my screen, and now is the opportunity for any of you to write in the question and answer section of the right-hand panel, and we will answer that for you. We've already gotten one or two already to ask for Olivia. One is, do the impact questions follow the same format for all 18 RSMP courses?
Thanks, Anne-Marie, for that question. So we have embedded all of the questions into each of the 18 programs. So from the participants' experience, yes, they do follow that same format. However, I've demonstrated from the shortest course, which was the introductory course, and the other courses do have a very interesting capability diagnostic set of questions there which are aligned to the learning objectives of each course and ask participants the same questions immediately before and immediately after they've completed the course, thereby getting an insight into the perceived learning gain and to really assess the effectiveness of the course itself.
Another one that just came in is, are there any differences in the course content between the non-impact and the impact versions of RSMP?
I'll take that question. Thanks, Anne-Marie. No, there is no difference to the course content. So you are absolutely still welcome to trial and purchase our original RSMP program without impact, and the content for those courses is exactly the same in the impact version. The only thing we've changed is the addition of these impact questions, which we do hope are a very positive addition to the content in terms of additional learning and reflective questions for participants, and of course providing that additional data to research to the administrators.
Okay, thank you so much, Olivia. I think that's all the questions that we have right now. Please feel free to contact us with any more questions. As you can see right now on the screen, you can have our contact details. Some of you may have already been in touch with our colleagues in regard to RSMP, but as you can see from our epigeum@oup.com, Olivia's email, or the free trial URL, you have many options to get in contact with Epigeum and to request a free trial. Now, just to remind you, we will be sending out a recording of this presentation so you can share it with the relevant colleagues who might find it of interest, or to rewatch it yourself. I just want to say finally thank you everybody for attending the webinar, and thank you so much to Douglas and Olivia for your presentation. I hope that everybody has a great rest of the day, and I'll be sending out the recording this week, so I hope to be hearing from you as well. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie and Douglas and everyone who attended.
Yes, thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you, Olivia.